Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. What the hell did she think was going to happen? It's Karen. Logic is never involved. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. A girl who begs about rent, free items, and then lies to get money gets exactly what she asks for. All right, friends, buckle up for the choosiest beggar in New Zealand flatting history. So a few years ago, I was living in Wellington, New Zealand, and was moving out of my apartment to move to my home city. I had numerous people come to view the room to replace me. Existing flatmates, druggy Damon, and never there Nico were staying. Minor detail, relevant later. One girl, Kate, came to view and asked what the room came with. I explained to her that it was unfurnished. She begged me to leave stuff behind, telling me she was starting a new life and needed anything I could leave. Planning to sell my furniture, I agreed to leave some of it to her if she took the room, for free. This included a bed, mattress, shelves, an art canvas, and a pot plant. She was happy with this initially, then begged for my candles, blankets, and clothes. I said no. She tried to guilt me into leaving my handbag, which she saw sitting by the bed. I said absolutely not. She whined and tried to negotiate with me on the rent, saying it was too high. I explained that it wasn't my house and I didn't set the costs, and if it was too expensive for her to move somewhere else. She decided to take the room but complained about having to wait until I moved out because she wanted to move in that same weekend. I agreed and let her move in so that I could find someone before I left the city, and she didn't even have to pay rent until the following Wednesday. So 5 days rent-free while I slept in my car. Wednesday was my final day in Wellington. Kate complained because she wanted a whole week rent-free. I explained we pay rent in advance and she was already getting 5 days free, which I'd paid for to sleep in my car. When I went to arrange the key exchange on the Saturday morning, she winged at me to drive 45 minutes away to give her the key, and while you're coming out here anyway, you can move some of my belongings back to the house for me. I said no and said I would hide the key on the property, plus I had all my belongings in my car. I packed up, leaving the items she wanted behind, that I wanted to sell but gave to her. She complained and bitched at me over text that afternoon to me when she turned up to take over the room because I hadn't left her my secondhand sheets for my bed or my towels. Ooh. And that she was unhappy with the rent and wanted it to be lower again. I told her that she had signed a contract and to take it up with the landlord. A day or two pass and landlord gets in touch informing me that Kate complained I'd left rubbish and unwanted items in the room. Dumbfounded, I asked what she meant. Yes, the bed, mattress, shelves, etc. I offered to go get them then to end this once and for all, and the landlord said that the new tenant wanted me to pay her to remove them. I messaged Kate asking her WTF her problem was, and she said that she needed a whole week rent-free and I should be paying her. So, lied to the landlord to try to get money out of me, holding up my ability to move and to receive my bond deposit back on the room. She still wanted the furniture, but had made up a story and lied for money. I saw red. I rang the landlord back and told her I'd be removing the unwanted items as Kate requested, so when Kate wasn't home, I went back to the house. Nico wasn't there, and druggy Damon opened the door and was too high to notice me dragging the bed and mattress out of the house, along with the shelves and art piece, leaving all of her bed linens on the floor, and accidentally tipping the soil out of her houseplant onto the carpet in her new room and over her clothes on the floor. When Kate arrived home later, I was, gone. She texted me telling me she was calling the police for stealing her things. I replied with a picture of me with the bed tied to the roof rack of my friend's car and pulling the middle finger. Police never called, and I've never been more satisfied. Note, gave bed and mattress to very thankful, nice, and polite student who is super grateful. Edit. In New Zealand, if you're leasing a flat, it's your responsibility to find a replacement for your room and for someone to replace you as a tenant on the lease. DD and NTN didn't care who moved in, so it was all on me to find someone before I moved. Druggy Damon's the unspoken hero of this story. And our second story. 3 strikes and you're out? Cool, I got this.
I work in sales, and we work as a team. I have an assistant who helps me get leads and set appointments. Well, this one particular assistant and I did not get along at all. This particular assistant kept going to my boss behind my back to report every little incident, which is really effing annoying. Part of my role as the senior rep was training. However, this assistant was a former business owner and knew how to do the job and didn't need any help. Well, the appointments the assistant set up had an 80% no-show rate, which is insane. In the past, no-shows would be maybe 25 to 30%. Not only that, this assistant would constantly argue and bicker over everything, which was really frustrating to deal with. This assistant also created their own lead card and tracking system, which completely sucked, and crap fell through all the time. Furthermore, about half of the contact details provided didn't actually work. But what really irked me the most is this assistant constantly sucked up to my manager about all the great things they're doing. My manager was in love with the assistant and kept preventing me from firing the assistant and replacing them. Now, our company has a little-known policy: 3 ethic complaints in a 12-month period and you're fired. Here's the deal, though. For a customer to file a complaint, they had to go to a specific page on our website, so very few complaints ever got filed. One day, I roll in 10 minutes late. My assistant had called my manager to complain that I was late. My boss asked why I was late. Now, keep in mind, we didn't clock in or out, and I often would come in early or stay late. To come in late once in a while was no big deal. But it was annoying knowing my assistant had a habit of constantly going behind my back and ratting me out on top of their crappy production. We're supposed to be a team. I asked to do a review of the assistant's leads. We got 3 leads deep, and my assistant huffed and puffed and said the leads belong to them, not me, and it's none of my business. Actually, it is. They then called my boss to complain about my behavior because I was pushing them to complete the lead review. My boss called me and I straight up told him he needs to give me the authority to fire this assistant or I'm going to force his hand. He told me I needed to learn how to work with my assistant. So I pulled up all the assistant's leads and began dialing. One thing that would justify an ethics complaint is opting in a lead for a call when they didn't want to be called, which I suspected I could find at least 3 instances of. I called all of the leads and I got 9 people who straight up said we never intended to be opted in to be given sales calls, to which I replied, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. We actually have an ethic complaints page for such a situation. Would you like me to forward you the link so you can file a complaint?" It'd really help us to ensure this kind of thing doesn't happen again. Within 48 hours, my assistant had gotten 5 ethics complaints. My boss called me 72 hours later. "Sting, it's really strange we got a slew of complaints about your assistant. Did you have any part of this?" Well, you see, my assistant refused to conduct a lead review with me, so I called all their leads for them. And on a few occasions, the lead claimed they didn't intend on providing their information for sales calls, so I simply sent them to the link to file a complaint. My boss said, "Yeah, well, now I'm forced to fire the assistant." I simply smiled and said, "Oh, that's really unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that." He confided, "Well, I guess you won this one." I said, "Not a problem. I'll go ahead and post the new job ad." My next assistant was much better and way easier to work with.
And our next story. My kids are entitled to your backyard and things. Okay, so just a quick guide before we start. EM, entitled Mom. EK1, entitled Kid 1. EK2, entitled Kid 2. M, my mom. Me. So we live in a cul-de-sac, and a few houses away is a family that's literally the trash of the neighborhood. The kids were about 4 or 5 and would constantly run up to my house and ring my doorbell constantly, even though my dad worked night shifts and barely got enough sleep. But that was bearable. But what they did one afternoon was completely insane. So my mom would often go for runs, and one afternoon she didn't have house keys, so she left the garage door open. She did this because I was often in the back shed working out, listening to music, and I was about 15 at the time. So these 2 kids just walk in and start bouncing on the trampoline. I didn't think too much of it because they were only kids and weren't doing any harm. Then EK1 walked in the little gym and starts playing with my Bluetooth speaker and then turns it off. I politely tell the kid that he can't touch it and turn it back on. The kid starts screaming and EM storms into my backyard. EM: "What have you done to my kid?" Me: He was playing with my speaker, so I took it off him. EK1 is still screaming and whining, and EK2 still bouncing on the tramp. EM, turn off the music. He doesn't like it. Me, not wanting to deal with this, I just turn off the speaker. EM then screams at me to give the speaker to her child and let him play something he likes. I tell her no. She does not like that at all. She calls EK2 to come over and she whispers to her kid something and then turns back to me. EM, I told my kids that they can have your speaker. Now stop being so selfish and give them the speaker. Me, excuse me, this is my speaker and my property. You can't just walk in here and tell me what to do. EM starts screaming and telling me that I'm a little butthole and her kids want to play here and they deserve that speaker. She then rips the speaker from my hands and storms off. Luckily, my mom gets home from her run at that exact moment. Mom, EM, what are you doing here? EM, your privileged little crap of a son tried to steal my kid's speaker and I'm just taking it back. My mom didn't buy it for a second and quickly responded telling EM that she must be mistaken because that's my speaker. EM, well, my kids want it, so he should give it to them. Mom, he doesn't owe you anything and you need to leave my property right now, otherwise I'll call the police. EM throws my speaker on the ground, breaking it, and instructs her kids to leave because, and I quote, "Someone people just think they're so entitled." After that, my mom filed an incident report and they were charged for damage to property and trespassing, and they've since moved out of the neighborhood. And our last story. Neighbor keeps stealing power for electric car. My neighbor and I have a shared driveway. I own my house, but the neighboring house is a rental. Last year, I bought an electric car and paid to have a charger installed on my side of the driveway. When I installed it, the previous tenants asked if they could use it on 2 occasions for guests who had electric cars, and I agreed that they could. Well, the new tenants apparently feel that they're welcome to use it whenever they like to charge their own car. They've actually unplugged my car in order to plug in theirs on a couple of occasions. Of course, this uses my power, but also prevents me from charging my own car, which has caused problems. I went over and asked them to stop using my power, and they were extremely rude and said that it was included in their lease, and that their landlord told them it was included in the property. Talking to them has been completely useless. In fact, when I unplugged their car and plugged in my own, they came over and banged on the door, threatening to sue me. I haven't been able to get in touch with their landlord. The 3rd or 4th time I found them charging their car on my plug, I called the police, who told me that this was a civil matter and wouldn't intervene. So I purchased a mechanism to keep them from plugging in. If my car's not charging, I turn off the breaker so there's no power. This made the neighbors incredibly angry, but legally I'm right, so they can complain to whoever they want. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.